Good evening and welcome to this Friday's edition of On the Trail. My name is Vuyo Mvoko. Now here's what we have in store for you tonight. On the show tonight, all agree they are the parties to watch. As we count down to the May 7th poll, we speak to political youth movements as they weigh in on issues affecting them. Tonight, we also conclude our talks with party leaders, and we speak to the APC's Themba Gudi. Well, let's get straight to it. Let me welcome from the ANC, Mr. Pula Mabe, Mbalintuli from the Democratic Alliance, and from the EFF, Mr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. Welcome to all three of you, and thanks very much for being here. Let me perhaps start with you, Mr. Ndlozi. It's almost, 2 days before that last day of campaigning. I'm sure you have a very fair idea now of where you are, pretty much. Do you?
Yes, I think that it's been a whole lot of work. But I've personally been across the country in all the 9 provinces combined. And we've gotten a very humbling reception from our people across the boards, in some instances in ways that have surprised us. But we're confident, and we're going to consolidate that confidence this Sunday at the Tsela Tupa rally in Atteridgeville at Lucas Moripe Stadium.
Mbali, how has the reception been? Do you think the DA has been, shall I say, more well received this time than you guys have been saying all along?
We continue to grow, Vuyo, and I mean, like my colleague here, I'm incredibly excited about these elections and incredibly excited by the responses we're getting specifically from young people. We've been crisscrossing the country as well, and we've really been talking to the issues that affect them the most. And I think, I mean, with all the things that are happening, the Democratic Alliance is positioning itself to do incredibly well on the 7th of May. I mean, just today we've been endorsed by Abahlali Basemjondolo, which is a huge movement that really shows that the Democratic Alliance is on the ground with the people. So we're very excited, and we know that on the 7th of May we're going to be one party that's not going to be disappointed by the results we're going to get.
Pule?
No, I mean, the confidence is growing. Our people are continuing to express their continued support to the People's Movement, the ANC. And I'm sure that with what we've been experimenting, we've not just been to the 9 provinces, we've been to each and every single village and township, including suburbs in this country. We've had many endorsement activities, and our people have assured us that they will return the ANC to continue with a program that changes their lives for the better.
Did they tell you the reasons why they are saying they want to return the ANC?
I mean, it's quite, for some reasons, it's seeming to be very obvious. They are quite excited with the programs that we have initiated and implemented since we came into power in 1994. They are quite excited that we have got a plan and a program that speaks to their desires and wishes through the National Development Plan. They are quite excited that we've been able to reverse the scourge of poverty in many amazing ways. We've done things that no other ruling party has done in the world. We've been able to provide people with housing. We are intensifying our work on the provision of basic and free education. We're doing all of these things to try and not just boost the confidence of our people, but to assure them that we are a movement that lives and stays with them.
Well, if he is to be believed, you stand no chance, Mbali.
He's not to be believed. I think that we've seen a big scourge and a drop in ANC confidence with all the scandals that they've had, from Gupta to Marikana to Ngandla, which is the big one that they seem to be able to not really have any accountability and transparency over. We see 1,300 protests that have happened across the country. We see young people not being able to access, tertiary education, having textbooks not delivered to their schools. There's a lot of problems, and nobody's going to sit here and deny that the ANC has done a lot of good work for South Africa. But the fact of the matter is, it's now coming to a stage where that good work is being undone by the massive amounts of corruption that we see in the ANC, and by the lack of their leaders to have the guts to actually call out people that are part of it. Well, so we appreciate how far we've come as South Africa, but we need to go further, and we're not going to go further with the ANC as it currently is. That's why the Democratic Alliance is definitely the best choice, because we have none of the issues that are really holding the ANC back, and we've proven now that we have a track record in government that we are able to deliver for people, and we're able to deliver for all people, not just people that are associated with us and our cronies.
But if the polls and the pundits are anything to go by, notwithstanding all the issues that you've raised that should have actually turned people away from the ANC, in reality, that is not happening.
I think it's going to take a long time for people to let go of the ANC.
So it won't be this election?
I don't think so. But that's not a bad thing. People always make the mistake of thinking that when political parties campaign, that we want that kind of power right now. As a Democratic Alliance, we'd be happy with the Northern Cape and Gauteng in this election to show people once again that we don't mind moving slowly and doing things the right and correct way. And when they have confidence in us in 2019, I'm very sure that we'll be the ones that will be the governing party. But it's not a race in terms of winning right now. We want to show people that we have the confidence. We want people to grow up with us. And I think that's what we're seeing in the Democratic Alliance. And as the ANC drops, we grow. So 2019 will definitely be the litmus test of how much people are willing to put up with from the ANC.
Mbuyiseni, you guys have confidence in abundance, no doubt about that. However, the polls are putting you at 5% and thereabout, and really it doesn't look like you're going to get, I mean, you're talking about, being in government. You're going to be in government, you're going to do that. But in reality, let's be real.
I am real, very much. As real as the type of speculation that I cannot put up with those statistics. We're government in waiting. We contest elections to win. We don't contest elections for anything else, and we're going to get the necessary numbers to become government. But I think that there has to be a correction that must be made tonight, and that is South Africans are happy. We're the protest capital of the world. And protest means dissatisfaction with those who rule, such that people take to the street. And we're beginning to kill.
We can see that. I mean, we all see that. I don't think we should have on that point. But the point one is making is that it hasn't translated into votes for the opposition generally. In other words, you haven't been able to take from them. In fact, no one has been able to take from them.
Yeah, well, those people have arrived.
It's you.
That's us. Those people have arrived. We've managed to plug into the dissatisfaction that has been expressed by the barren macroeconomic policies of both these two people that they continue to invest in, that are unable to creatively redirect South Africa's economy in ways that are inclusive to everyone. We are not only a protest capital of the world, we are beginning to kill protesters. Marikana, Mututlung, Relela. We're becoming a terrible nightmare to the poor in this country. And we've got to be very serious. And that is why I am confident, because we've made a proper diagnosis. Not only have we made a proper diagnosis, we've provided a proper answer. And that is, we've got to reconcile our people, particularly black people. We've got to reconcile them to the means of production, to the ability to own, to the ability to be part of the very center of running and controlling the economy through the policies of the EFF. Land expropriation without compensation, because apartheid was a crime against humanity. We're going to put it to the test and say, we can't pay you. The whole world agrees. The ultimate crime of apartheid was the dispossession of our people. That's why they are always made available as cheap, easily disposable labor. That we're going to correct that through land expropriation without compensation, nationalization of mines, and we're going to lead a protected industrial development, something that the NDP doesn't even dream of.
Well, one criticism of your stance is that the reason you are able to make these unrealistic promises is because you are well aware that you're not going to be in power, so you're not going to face the consequences of promises that you can't deliver on.
What is unrealistic about nationalization? I mean, post-war, World War II in Britain, there were a lot of factories and industries that were nationalized. What is unrealistic about asking for the land back? What is unrealistic? I mean, in the 80s, there were whites that spoke like you. Right-wingers also said it's unrealistic to ask black people to vote because they're not educated, they won't make the proper decision. Now, that's not unrealistic. When we're talking justice, I think that we've got to all be responsible in the ways in which we enter into the discourse of getting that justice back.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts right there. We're going to take a quick ad break. We'll be back right after this.
Good evening and welcome to yet another edition of Sports Live, the show that brings you the latest local and international news, live interviews with the who's who in sport. He's the first South African to wear a yellow jersey that was at the Tour de France this year.
It's the first time that we get a boxer who's recognized by the Ring magazine as the best fighter in the planet to visit our country.
And he's very close to world record pace. And in fact, it is a new world record.
When you cross the line, what went through one's mind?
None of the four of us knew who had won. The scoreboard is always on the left, but all of us tend to the right. No, we just waited for the country to go down. RSA.
That's Sports Live, daily at 8:30 p.m. on SABC News.
International relief missions, including South Africa's Gift of the Givers, are facing delays in getting aid and medical supplies to those without water and electricity.
It's proving to be a logistical nightmare for a South African NGO to deliver humanitarian aid in typhoon-hit areas.
Head of Disaster Operations, Butch Ong, says it's extremely difficult to get aid to people and that the situation there is dire.
Authorities grounded flights earlier this evening as Gift of the Givers aid workers were about to take off.
That's Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
Rocks and stones are such an inescapable part of the Zimbabwe landscape. They're absolutely everywhere. There's granite, there's serpentine, and there's soapstone. But using this ordinary rock, with a little bit of creativity and skill, we've been able to use this ordinary rock to put Zimbabwe on the global map. The monument's bricks were carved out of the granite rock faces.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're watching a live broadcast of On the Trail, a special edition today for the first time on a Friday. If I may just tell you, during the break, Pula Mabe felt that he shouldn't be here because the two panelists are in fact doing the work for him.
No. What I meant was that there's been a much appreciated endorsement from the leader of the Democratic...
She wasn't really endorsing you, but acknowledging some of the good that you've done.
Yes. We normally use the good that we've done.
But as she said, your work also leaves a lot to be desired.
We have continued going to our people to humble ourselves. Democracy has got its own challenges. We have agreed on areas where we faced challenges.
Which are?
One, we have explained what we are doing to try and cap service delivery in instances where people would want us to increase and extend our arm. For instance, you will know, we are now building massive infrastructure to be able to provide water to communities that needed those dams. We've done Nandoni. We're increasing on investment in such. We're increasing in our investment on roads. Actually, the ANC-led government has put over R1 trillion to be able to deal with such investment. But I wanted to also come to a very interesting question on nationalization, the expropriation of land. You know, in our own conference, at the 53rd National Conference of the ANC, we adopted the principle of just and equitable. We said that where we expropriate land, it must be in the public interest. And we have done as far as making sure that we deal with legislation, Section 25 of the Constitution, to make sure that those people that have been previously excluded from land ownership are in fact given such access. You'll also know that in 2014 we've been able to also open again for the next 5 years for people to come and do land claims if they feel that they've missed out on the initial.
Why then did you buy Mala Mala? If you have adopted the principle of land expropriation without compensation, why did you pay those billions in Mala Mala that your president could not even pronounce?
Without being distracted, I will have to continue from where I was. Because it's quite important. We've got the manifesto of the ANC, which clearly explains what the African National Congress is doing on the question of land, what we are doing on economic development, and all of that. We are doing all of these things because we want to try and reverse the legacy of apartheid, assert the right of our people to own land where they live, stay, where kids play, and all of that. So we have got a program.
Why do you think he's not getting it?
I mean, of course, Vuyo, it has not really been a stand of the ANC to entertain what opposition parties are doing, because we have come to a realization that half the time they speak about us. So now we can't speak about the opposition.
Nonsense.
We should be speaking.
You guys speak just as much about us as we speak about you.
We should be speaking
about.
In
fact, Blade Zimanda's entire speech yesterday was about the Democratic Alliance. You can't get us off your lips.
No, that's
It's
fine.
not something to feel bad about. It's politics, and you should
Myself,
be able to
I know
answer
that the
to the things that
EFF
we
has,
say.
been
But I would also
providing,
like a chance here to get in on the conversation that's
Yes,
been having.
can I just...
let's allow it to come in on the nationalization issue.
That's fine.
I just want to put it very clearly on the nationalization and land reform issue, because I think that the Democratic Alliance has the best answers when it comes to these two questions, because clearly these two agree, and so it's actually voting for the same party, and South Africa must be very aware when they vote for either one of them that that's what's going to be happening. On the land issue, there's enough land in this country that is tribal land and that is land that's under the government that would be well used if we could actually get it audited and we could actually know what was happening. The ANC has had 20 years, and yes, land claims have happened, and that's good. But the fact of the matter is we still don't know where a lot of land is, how it's allocated, and how people can actually fundamentally access it outside of these processes that just happen when elections are about to come up now.
As far as I'm aware, an audit has actually been completed. They've just not acted.
Well,
having
what are we
received
going
the
to do with the
information.
government that does things but then doesn't act on them? Because then that is the problem. But the fact of the matter is there is enough land, and if we really want land to be able to be used in this country, we need to do what the Democratic Alliance has suggested, which is to have 10 billion invested into land claims, 10 billion invested into actually having a land program that's going to benefit young people, where they're going to be able to have the skills to work on this land, skills to trade in this land, do whatever it is that they need. Unlike the EFF, which takes away people's agency and the ability to actually earn everything by saying everyone's going to be equal, we want to say people should have their own. They should have title deeds. They should be able to do something with their land, so they actually have tenure of getting loans, of getting banks, and actually being able to do something with their land. It is unrealistic, and I'm saying it's unrealistic, to say that we're going to have...
It's not me this time, huh?
to say that we're going to have land nationalization without a clear path of how the EFF decides to do this, because we know that we've tried in South Africa with the Lex Score. It's failed dismally under the ANC government, and the EFF was underneath that government at that time with Julius Malema championing that very move. We've seen we haven't been able to do it. As a DA, we say, let's give people parts of land ownership, shares in these companies, and let the people that know what they were doing do it, and then we reap the benefits as citizens. That way you're creating competition, you're creating people being able to move around and move their assets around, instead of having the system where the EFF wants us all, without explaining how, to just give up our land, probably to Julius Malema.
Why are the two of you laughing this off?
Because it looks like she has not read anything that the EFF has said, and she has the guts to come on national TV and mislead our people. Be humble. Accept if you haven't read things that we have said. It's not true. Half of the things that you have said, I don't think you've understood what we're talking about. The decency of criticism. The decency of criticism is that if you don't agree with Marx, you've got to read him so that you know what is it that you disagree with.
Why don't you explain to us how this would actually work in South Africa where it hasn't been able to work?
We're going to do that. Firstly,
because it's unrealistic in the way that you guys have put it forward, and that is a fact. That's not me not reading your manifesto, which is quite vague, to be honest, and says that you'll do whatever citizens decide at the time, which is also, frankly, nothing that can always work. That is exactly the ways that you guys have.
Okay, let me explain, because I think that, I mean, realistic is becoming a cheap word in this debate, because all of us have statements of intent. We intend to do certain things. You've got to substantiate. You can't just say unrealistic. You're doing through.
But that's what we're giving you an opportunity to do.
That's fine. I'm going to explain. Our plan, first of all, is that land can't be bought back, because majority of South Africans don't have money to buy it back. But also there are not so many interested sellers. We've got to think of land in the first instance as a political question, as the fundamental sin of apartheid. That's what colonization is about, is to dispossess our people of land. Reconciliation has had to be built on us reconciling with the land. That's the first step. The second step is that we're going to expropriate it. Firstly, we'll end private ownership of the land by foreign nationals. You can't go to America and buy land to Britain or to China and buy land and own land there. All the land will be under, because then you lose your sovereignty. So Kesna will just buy the rest of South Africa. It will be under the custodianship of the state. And then we will distribute it, residential land, agricultural land, and all types of public land. We'll distribute it, and those who will issue licenses, you must come and say, this is what I want to use the land for. We give you a tenure of specific number of years. It's there in the manifesto. You use it for those purposes. You are responsible at that instance as the person that has said, I want to use this land for these purposes. The last thing that I think it's important to clarify. ANC does not have a policy of nationalization. Again, the other mistake that is happening tonight. These two people have agreed in Parliament that the next 20 years or 30 years of South Africa are going to be led through a policy called the National Development Plan. Nationalization is a song in the ANC. It's not a policy. If it is a policy, it must be in government, it must be implemented. And that's what's important. No. They need to come to television tonight because they know that these elections are going to be won on nationalization, on land expropriation, not as things that you say you want to do. They don't have those things in the NDP.
Give you the first chance to respond to things you said.
I think that there's quite a lot that the ANC is doing to even be entertaining what other parties are doing. I think our people are looking for real things. Our people are looking for jobs. Our people want to be skilled so that they could be able to participate in the mainstream of our economy. Our people want strategies that talk to proper human settlement.
So you're not going to speak to the things you raised?
I think that where it relates to nationalization, of course, you would know that the ANC would have done extensive studies, even on the state-owned mining company, to begin to say we must now extend the arm of government on ownership of mineral resources. But of course, there are a number of things. When we go and meet our people, one of the things that are being raised, for instance, on social security, there would have been an old woman in Bloemanda, in Bloemfontein, where that when we met them during our traditional door-to-doors, which we do all the time, would have said to us, before 1994, we were receiving social grants once in 3 months. When the ANC-led government came in, we were receiving, to use her words, she says we are now receiving social grants court. But to even take it further, in 1996, we introduced the Reconstruction and Development Program, which began to say, this is what we're going to do to be able to reverse the legacies of apartheid and change South Africa for the better. We had Asgisa in 2004 under President Mbeki. We went on. We now have the National Development Plan.
So from what your supporters are telling you, the issues you're talking about are the things that matter to them and not what he is talking about?
Look, there is a section of our constituency, society that we lead. So, I mean, if the ANC is effectively a body of everything, we have got...
So it's catered for and your people accept
It's catered for and our people accept how we're dealing with the question of land.
I mean, just to finish this particular point on the land, I think the difference between the ANC and the EFF and the DA is that unlike the other two parties, the DA is not concerned about government owning everything. We actually want to put the power in people's hands. So that's why we say we need that power, we need that land to be in people's names, in people's own hands, so that they are the ones who are able to decide what they want to do about it. We've seen when a government has too much control, like these two parties are proposing to have, that it actually is not good for people because it takes away individual agency. And I hear what the EFF is saying, and a lot of it sounds good, but the way that they want to do it is not going to be a way that's going to have equity share for the people that actually want it. Okay. And they can say all that they want about nationalization and expropriation, but until they actually tell us how this is going to work for our people and how they're going to be able to do it, I don't think it's something that's tenable. Whereas our policy is very clear about people being able to have this land, have title deeds, and be able to do something with it, as well as having a standalone project that goes with them and teaching them how to actually do stuff.
For the sake of progress, I'm going to let you have the last word on this. After the break, we're going to move on to one issue that the latest polls say is the most important thing for young people who are going to vote in this election, and that's jobs.
Yes.
That's after this short break.
Yes. That's our space.
why is it that we spend more on education but get less in return?
I would like him to tell us about what they have done in Khayelitsha.
The pass rate at schools serving poor communities has gone up from 57% to 73%.
We have children in our school at grade 9 who cannot read, and that must be a severe indictment on both parties.
What we should be focusing on is how to remedy the situation.
Catch the election debates on SAFM, SABC News Channel and SABC One, Sundays at 6 p.m.
Welcome back. This is a live debate from leaders of youth wings of the EFF, the ANC, and the Democratic Alliance. Jobs, jobs, jobs. The latest research shows that if there's one thing that young people in this country are concerned about, it is jobs. Half of those who have left or are leaving school actually have no jobs, and they have no hope, many of them, that they will get any jobs in the near future. How is your party, Mr. Ndlozi, going to address that?
Yes, thank you. I think we have the most workable plan. I think we must be able to see how certain things have not worked in the past 20 years. They've not worked in developing countries. To depend on foreign direct investment is not going to assist us. To depend as well only for the provision of jobs on private capital is not going to help us. It has failed in the past 20 years to actually bring particularly quality jobs. We believe that the state must lead a protected industrial development. We must protect local industry, but also the state must get in and be involved in the development and the initiative of industry. You know, apartheid started a lot of the firms that have become privatized, that are sustaining to this day some of the parts of our economy. We think that we've got to get involved. For an example, South Africa consumes 2 billion chickens a year. And part of why we want to take land is because we want to make South Africa be a country that can feed itself. Because a huge majority of our food that we consume in South Africa comes from overseas. More than 1 billion of the chickens that we consume come from Brazil and the US. Yet we've got the perfect ecological conditions for chicken farming. We've got to get involved. That's jobs. So we will lead a protected industrial development, wherein we initiate industry, we go on to partnerships in some instances to ensure that we kickstart those things. The last thing, we're going to invest in education. We're going to educate our people, not on debt. We're going to educate them for free until the attainment of the first degree.
So we're going to get to education, but that's the next important thing after jobs.
Thank you.
We're still talking jobs, Mbali. Your party?
My party, now that we have a track record, has shown that we are able to create jobs when we have the right environment. And that environment is on twofold, supply and demand. Now, from the supply side, you need to make sure that the people that you're educating are in the classrooms at the right times, are able to actually have a decent quality education that they're going to be able to use to be competitive. Then on the demand side, where we're coming in with business and firms, we as the Democratic Alliance believe that a real revolution needs to happen in terms of the stakeholders that are the private sector, that are universities, everyone that actually gets involved in the employment of young people. And we need to have a conversation about what it is that we need to do and how it is that we're going to make sure that these young people are competitive, not just in South Africa, but globally, because it's no longer, a closed, protected society that we live in. We live in a globalized land where we need to do that. We believe that we can do this with an 8% growth in our economy by creating 1 million internships for young people, apprenticeships that are going to be happening for young people. We believe that young people should be getting skills, and we've been doing this in the Western Cape, where we teach you, even if you don't have a matric, that as long as you have hands and you're willing to work, we're able to take you and put you in skilling programs that you're actually going to be able to be an entrepreneur and feed yourself, because we know that we need to create an economy that's going to have job creators, not just job seekers. We don't want our young people to just be solely dependent on the state for their jobs. We want to make sure that they are able to actually create jobs for themselves and that they're able to grow the economy in that way. That's how you create entrepreneurs. That's how you cut the red tape and make sure that people have access to business. We are also, obviously, the big thing when it comes to jobs is not going to be corrupt, because a lot of the corruption that we're seeing is actually robbing our people, and our young people specifically, of jobs. And when we talk about that, we're going to make sure that people can't do business with the state if there are people that are aligned somehow with government officials, and that we're going to open up those processes and give it to young people, especially previously disadvantaged people, because it's very important that we make sure that we are catering to people that have not had those opportunities in the past because of apartheid. And I'm not just talking about black, coloured, and Indian people, I'm also talking about women specifically, handicapped people, gay people, that we often forget when we talk about that.
But, I mean, the free market or business, which you support from
Yes.
an ideological standpoint, is not coming to the party, which is why they are looking at the options that they are talking about. Even they, who are not as radical as them, are actually admitting that the private sector isn't coming to the party the way it should.
It's simply not true. In the Western Cape, where we have been speaking to many private sector firms, and I speak about it because this is where we govern and it's the way I can make examples, as well as in Midville, as well in Bavians. We've done great negotiations with the private sector where we've had 80% retention rates of our young people being able to get in there. Perhaps the private sector doesn't want to come to the table because it's the ANC and they don't trust them, because the ANC have shown that they are not worthy of actually being given the trust to actually...
You are not worthy of being trusted. That's the problem.
No, I think... of course, if I wouldn't want to venture into the space of trust, because we are in motion.
But we must.
We are in motion. We have got a program that begins to deal with how we are going to address the disparities, especially the lack of jobs. We have got one of the most successful and revered programs called Extended Public Works Program. We have created millions of jobs under that program. We have actually set aside a target of creating 6 million jobs over the next 5 years, up till 2019. But we're not just doing that, we're also making sure that we give our people skills that are required to move the economy forward. You know, we are also, again, on the side of industrialization. You would know, through the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, we started procuring new rolling stocks. And one of the things that we've done in there was to make sure that PRASA is encouraged to set up its own local manufacturing plants, so that some of the components required to be able to boost this rolling stock capitalization program, those components are manufactured in the country. And that the manufacturing of such would be able to create the much needed jobs. So when it comes to the ANC and the creation of jobs, we do have a plan, and that plan is in motion. We continue refining it to make sure that it speaks to the present day challenges.
We are just, I mean, just to come to what Upulesh just said, maybe the ANC is creating jobs, but it's for certain people, because we've lost 1.4 million jobs since President Zuma's taken over. Minister Patel was on an interview himself yesterday where he's talking about the fact that you have struggled to have any job creation in the last 5 years. And that's something that you must answer for, because clearly these jobs that are being created aren't jobs that are trickling down to us, the common people. There are jobs that are obviously being held by the Mbisanis and the Guptas and people that, you know, are obviously associated with the ANC. Because how do you explain the fact that we have lost so many jobs for young people? How do you explain that there are 800,000 graduates that are sitting at home? How do you explain the fact that we have more than 35% of our people sitting at home not able to actually access the economy? That does not show creation of jobs.
I think what we have said, EFF will be coming after we've told our people the truth. What we have said was that, one, we have got an infrastructure development program, and the ANC doesn't just speak about jobs. The ANC speaks about the creation of decent work. We're even going further to say that over the next few years...
What is decent work?
One of the things that we are trying to address in that is to make sure that we also try to have a minimal scale of the salaries that are paid to our people who are doing the different... who are participating in the different programs that government would have introduced. But I wanted to just... conclude.
Very professional.
Yes, we've got the infrastructure. We're using the infrastructure development program to be able to create the much needed jobs. We are alive to the need to create new industries so that we could be able to make sure that the economy of our country works and works for the better of our citizens.
The pot is full. You are not going to do anything to the current constellation of productivity. You've got to expand the economy.
You've got to venture outside.
Yeah, you've got to venture outside. You're not going to... It's an embarrassment, actually. I'm shocked that we are here, an ANC celebrating EPWP. And it says we've created jobs. I'm shocked, because those are not real jobs. And he says we are working on a decent job. People are badly paid. Majority of those jobs that are done by our people, it's a perpetuation of the type of indignified black use, abuse, and exploitation. You've got to expand the economy in order to get more people to participate in it. Protected industrial development, creating
What do you
further
mean by
ports.
protected?
Protected from the global markets, because local markets, because you've got to be able, I said for an example, you've got to be able to produce your own chicken. And in order to produce your own chicken successfully, you've got to stop the chicken that is coming outside. You've got to protect your own economies. No, we're talking.
Okay. Let me ask all three of you to hold it right there. After the break, I'm going to ask each one of you to make concluding remarks on the jobs question, and then we move on to the second biggest issue affecting young people, and that is education.
Yes.
You missed the Oscar Pistorius trial? Watch the update and highlights of key moments in the trial on SABC News Channel 404 every night at 9 o'clock and at 5 a.m. All local, all global, all the time.
Welcome back. Mbuyisa, I'm going to give each one of you literally 20 seconds to just round off that discussion about jobs. You are still on your chicken run story. You want to run a chicken run, son?
Not a chicken run, a proper chicken industry. I'm saying that you can't keep giving a job, one job of sweeping. It's worth 4,500 rand. And you keep chopping it up and giving it to 10 people, paying them less, and say we're creating jobs. We've got to be creative. We've got to venture out into new industry. And there are possible avenues. One of those possible avenues is chicken farming. Why? Because we've got the best ecological conditions. We can feed ourselves through the chicken, feed the entire continent, as well as the Middle East. That is what I'm saying. And that's what kills. That is what is undermined. That's what undermines the National Development Plan, which both agree on.
Your closing comments?
I actually partly agree with the EFF on the fact that the ANC isn't actually creative when it comes to how to expand the economy. And this is why, as the Democratic Alliance, we've said and we put a clearly costed plan of how we would expand the economy by 8%, which would allow for 6 million real jobs that young people would be able to access, all people would be able to access. And this would be done in a combination of factors, including looking at education, looking at the supply demand side, and making sure that we had industries that would be globally competitive and that people would actually be able to access and get into, and that would actually create an economy that was growing, especially when it comes to our entrepreneurs, which is really where we can easily, as South Africa, really find a way to grow our economy by making more young people have access to opportunities, what the NYDA should be doing and isn't doing, to have their own businesses, to create something of themselves and to grow our economy.
Bula?
Like I've said before, maybe just to start by clarifying, one of the things we've done with the EPWP program is to make sure that it also introduced specialized sectors where we employ young people working in the coast. We have got the Youth Jobs in Waste program, which pays young people who participate. And it's part of EPWP. They are paid decently, because EPWP, like all other different jobs, has got its own salary scales. So we're doing this to make sure that we attract the skills necessary to be able to take our economy forward. There's industrialization, which I'd already spoken about on the manufacturing of components. I gave an example of rolling stock. We're also talking localized procurement, where we are saying 75% of the goods that government procures should be procured locally. In so doing, we will be able to sustain those local enterprises, because we appreciate ourselves that enterprise development plays a significant part of being able to sustain the jobs.
Seems to be suggesting you just want to find something for your tenderpreneurs.
Look, of course, there are two things that you find in society. You find people who sound like us, and you find us.
Okay, let's move to education.
Yes.
Jose?
Yeah, part of the best already. The EFF is leading in these elections, as you know. With everything, with style. We did a red beret, which sells like cookies, like hot cookies. And, everybody started following up while leading. So I'm not sure why some people keep insisting that, the obsession is with us. We think education should be free. We think quality education should be free in South Africa. We must not educate our people on debt. And I'm not here tonight to celebrate mediocrity, like EPWP or NFSAS. We've got to give our people an opportunity to be educated until the attainment of the first degree. 2 reasons why. 1, the degree is important for the attainment of a job. Many people are left at matric and they are told, no, you don't have a degree, therefore you can't be. But also we've got to educate them for free because in the end we're going to benefit from those skills. It is our economy that is going to get the result out of the people that we would have educated. That is what the Economic Freedom Fighters is offering. And lastly...
Bali? I'm not going to allow you that last.
No problem.
Bali?
When it comes to education, again, we've proven that we are able at a basic level to make sure that we are producing quality matriculants that are actually able to access tertiary education. When it comes to tertiary education, we've said that we would give free education to all qualifying matriculants. And this is an incentive to young people to make sure that they actually get to that level and therefore have their studies transferred into bursaries, which is essentially meaning that we want to reward young people that are going to be working hard and make sure that we're having the young people in the right streams of education. But the fact of the matter is none of this is going to happen if at a very basic level of education, we are not going to be able to deliver textbooks, we're not going to have our teachers in classes at the same time, which is why we need to have a real conversation about unions, especially teacher unions, that are more preoccupied with playing political football with our children's education rather than being in the classroom. And that, as the Democratic Alliance, is something that we've taken very seriously in the Western Cape. We've put in performance assessments, we've brought back abantu abahlolayo, we've gotten principals to sign agreements where they actually need to produce results, because if you're not going to give those children a quality basic education, they're never even going to make it to get that free education.
Your
for
minute
tertiary.
on education?
No, thanks, Vuyo. In 1996, TEFSA said at just hundreds of thousands of rands. In 2009, it was sitting just at over 3 billion rand. In 2014, TEFSA is sitting at over 9 billion rand. Through that National Student Financial Aid Scheme, we have been able to make sure that we bring the most disadvantaged children, the most disadvantaged youth into the education stream, providing them with the necessary skills to make sure that they can participate in the economy. We are making grade R. It's one of the points that we are emphasizing in our manifesto. We are making grade R compulsory. We are continuing to make sure that we improve the conditions of our schools. We are not doing what is being done in the Western Cape where schools are being closed down. We are actually...
The ANC has been closing down schools in more than one province.
We are actually expanding and extending on access.
I'm going to ask you to hold it right there. We've got 1 minute. I'm going to give you 20 seconds each to make your concluding remarks as to why young people should vote for your party, starting with you, Mbuyiseni.
The time for economic freedom is upon us. We've got to go to this election and do it for economic emancipation. Why other people are saying that people should do it for Nelson Mandela, for an example, is because they've run short of role models. Do it for economic freedom on the 7th of May. Vote EFF.
Bali?
Young people must do it for themselves on the 7th of May. They must look clearly at parties that have proven that they are able to do the job and do the job efficiently and well without being able to be corrupt and without having leadership that is lacking in any credibility to actually lead them. They need to vote for a party that has a clear manifesto that is going to work for them and a party that has shown it has worked for people like the Democratic Alliance.
Bula?
We're the only party that each time when we do our manifesto, we always emphasize the people together moving South Africa forward. They must do it for Mandela because Nelson Mandela is the first president of a democratic South Africa. ANC is led by President Zuma. They are alive to the fact that after elections, President Zuma will continue to preside over the state of the people of South Africa.
Thank you very much. We've run out of time, unfortunately. Well, that's where we're going to end this particular debate. After the break, we bring you that conversation, the last in our series of party leaders. This time it's with the president of the APC, Mr. Themba Godi. That's after this short ad break.
best run metro in the whole of the country.
What steps will you take to protect communities from the kind of police brutality?
When I am the mayor, I won't take the R1 million salary.
You guys all look the same. None of you should be trusted.
Catch the election debates on SAFM, SABC News Channel and SABC One, Sundays at 6 p.m.
Who are we, you ask?
This is who we are.
We are technologically driven.
We are unashamedly Afrocentric.
We advise you not only on legal matters,
but on health issues as well.
We bring imagination to life.
We celebrate arts and culture and lifestyle.
We tackle life challenges head on.
We dig deep. We probe. We question.
We invite you to take a view from our house.
As we tell it without fear, separating fiction from factual.
We are the SABC News Channel.
All news, all global, all the time.
Well, the African People's Convention, APC, is one of the parties that are contesting Wednesday's general election. Now, the APC was formed in 2007 by its current president, Themba Godi. I had a chat with him earlier in the week in the last of our series where we've been talking to party political leaders, and here is how our conversation went. Mr. Godi, thank you very much for coming. It's the last few days of the campaigning. How has it been?
Well, it's been a long, hard one. I think the body is starting to report that it has been subjected to a lot of stress and strain. But so far, so good.
Do you feel it was all worth it?
No, indeed. I think for me and for the APC, it has been a very interesting journey, especially in terms of reaching out to the rural areas that we're seeing a member of parliament for the first time by my being there, and appreciating the depth of underdevelopment in the rural areas that we inherited in 1994. And the challenges associated with raising the levels of our people from there to a much more acceptable level.
How comfortable are you that you are going to not only retain your one seat, but hopefully grow?
No. Look, we went into these elections with an objective and also with a plan. And so far, I think we are executing our plan very, very well. So we are not talking in terms of whether we'll be able to retain our seat, but it's much more how many of us are going to go to Cape Town and whether indeed we'll achieve our other objective of ensuring that we have representation in the provincial legislatures.
Let me ask, who are the people who voted for you in the last election?
Well, you'll note that our area of focus have always been, by and large, within the African community and in those areas that are distressed, because we believe that freedom should have material meaning to our people. And those that feel there is something that is lagging out, we have been the voice that has been there for them. So those are the areas that voted for us. But for now, I think more than 95% of our time we spent it in the rural areas, and that's where we believe the majority of our votes are going to come.
But how is your message different from the rest of the political parties?
Well, two critical elements. The first one is the fact that we're the only party that in its manifesto has a section dedicated to what have we done in the last 5 years, which somehow is a reassuring message to the potential voter that we don't get votes and then go to sleep and wake up in the next round. Secondly, we were a party that has been seen and continues, even as far as yesterday, going to communities where they have problems, where they have issues, and offer to provide leadership in finding solutions to those problems. I think that, as a reputation, is much more important than maybe even the details of the issues that we're raising in our manifesto.
Examples of the places where there was a crisis, you would move in and actually give those people, at the very least, a shoulder to cry on?
Well, we've been to so many places and to so many constituencies. If you talk about traditional leaders, if you talk about police reservists, if you talk about lay councillors and home-based caregivers, if you talk about communities with mines, if you talk about mine workers, fishermen, driving school owners, the list can go on and on. Those are constituencies to whom we are going back now to say, it is in your own interest to have the APC in Parliament and even strengthened, because we can do more than what we have done in the previous Parliament.
But what do you do? What do you offer them? I mean, you get into a community like Marikana. You went into Marikana. You've been there fishing in that pond with your UDMs and EFFs. But what do you do differently? What are the sort of things that you say or do in those communities that sort of makes the difference, that make people listen up to you?
Let's take the Khalaupeng in Limpopo. You have land claimants. They've had problems of accessing the commission. They had internal problems. When we came in, we said, we are not going to solve your problems, but we're going to solve them with you. We're going to give you a comrade who will forever be with you, who will go with you to the commission and ensure that the right things are done. And as we're talking now, in less than 2 months, that community's land claims is back on track. And the difference has been that there has been an APC person who is dedicated to following up with them and being with them and giving them guidance. I think that's the difference, and that's what we do all over. And it's not me. I have lieutenants below me who are able to run with those issues.
Now, how much of it also has something to do with your performance in Parliament as the chairperson of SCOPA? Do people talk about that, or has that counted in your favor at all?
Well, in large measure, yes, but in some little measure, it becomes a disadvantage. Some think I'm the president of SCOPA, and, another of the APC aspect. But that has stood me and the APC in very good stead, because the work that we've done in Parliament, we've always said, I did not do it because I'm a good person. I've done it because that represents the values that the APC stand for. So people have some level of confidence in what I say based on what they have seen me do in Parliament. So yes, it has been advantageous.
Aren't you being grateful to the ANC for having given you that position? Because if they chose not to, you would not have been.
Well, I have actually publicly thanked them that, the privilege that they gave me has not only helped me personally to grow and understand things better, but it has also assisted the profile of the APC. So, yes, it was a privilege for which I will forever be thankful to the ruling party.
And it has not in any way sort of colored your eyes, shall I say, gotten you to take certain positions which are in fact in line with what the ANC may be thinking. And a case in point is your stance on the IEC chairperson. You came out, addressed a media briefing only last week to say the UDM and the rest of them are actually talking nonsense.
No, not at all. Actually, the ANC has given me the space to do my work. But also as a freedom fighter, I'm very proud of what I've done, and I would not tarnish it for purpose of personal gain. So I've always known that it's a privilege. If they want to take it, so be it. I will not cling to it by selling out on my fellows. Take the IEC case, for example. I think all that we are saying, and have said that in the PLC meetings, mind you, is that, look, if there is a problem, let's allow due process to take place. Because some of these parties, I've known that they have not trusted the IEC. They've actually said the IEC is a project of the National Intelligence Agency. So for them, anything would do to challenge and discredit the credibility of the IEC. And I think that as a country, trying to build institutions supporting democracy, we need to be very responsible in how we deal and handle problems whenever they arise.
Now, the same parties you're talking about do not have good things to say about the ANC government. Its performance, that is, over the past 20 years. Your own assessment of the ANC government's performance?
No, look, we have covered some distance, and so far everybody agrees. But there is still some distance to cover. You see, the difference is that as the APC, we understand that development is a process. You don't press a button and things, all of them change overnight. And I think that's where they're missing it. We are very critical of the ANC. The APC is a declared socialist party. The ANC is not pursuing socialist policies. But all we're saying is if we contest elections and somebody wins, what is our responsibility? Is it to continuously oppose, or is to say, what can we do to assist in accelerating service delivery to our people? Because if the focus is we want power for ourselves and it has nothing to do with the people, then, well, that becomes something else very different from what the APC stands for.
And this is no cop-out from someone who thinks they are indebted, grateful even to the African National Congress for having given you the chairpersonship of SCOPE.
Let me assure you, the amount of work that we put into the APC and the amount of work that I personally put into the APC, that SCOPE position would not have delivered anything. It merely creates a positive environment. If you don't go out there, go to Gomolo in Port St. John's, go to Lusikisiki, go to Petaneng, go to Majeng in the Northern Cape, go to those deep rural areas, you wouldn't reap anything. So what I had in Parliament merely created a positive environment, but you still needed to go out there and soak it out. And that is what we have done. And when the results come, some people will be surprised, but we will not be, because we know it is a product of hard work.
You have 30 seconds to convince a potential voter who may not have made up their minds as yet. What do you say to them?
Look, I want to say to the African people in general, the working class in particular, and all honest and patriotic South Africans, the APC has over the years proven itself to be a party that cares about the welfare and the well-being of our people. A vote for the APC will not be lost. It will be a vote that will work for you as a voter.
Mr. Goti, thank you very much, and may the best party win.
Indeed. Thanks.
Well, that's where we end this week's edition of On the Trail. Do join me, though, on Sunday at 6 p.m. for the final debate, and that's where we'll have Gwede Mandashe, Lindiwe Mazibuko, Musiwa Likota, among others. See you then. For now, it's a good night.
Coming up this week.